Chapter 1. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. In the yard with golden wheat in the sun, behind him is a row of 3 adobe houses painted with white ash, and on the edge is a low stove. In the distance is a dirt path only about 2 meters wide. A row of old poplar trees about 10 years old are fields full of wheat stubbles. The cicada's voice is in my ear. Looking back, a woman was playing in the yard with a girl of about 15 or 16 years old. Gu Qiaoyue smiled bitterly. This is a reflection. Before she died, she saw the person she wanted to see most in her life. The moment before, she found her husband had an affair and was pushed down from the upstairs by her husband and Xiao San. The next moment, sure enough, he was dead and looked back. "Mom!" Gu Qiaoyue involuntarily shouted. As soon as the voice came out, Gu Qiaoyue was stunned. The crisp and pleasant voice like an oriole was not her voice. "Xiao Yu, are you hungry? I'll cook when Mom finishes this." The woman looked back, wiped the sweat on her head, and went back to work. The girl on the side turned her head and looked after Xiao Yu discontentedly. "Sister, you are lazy again. Drink water for so long. You can have a rest after finishing this work quickly." The girl was clearly her sister. Gu Qiaowan looked like a teenager. Gu Qiaoyue stood stunned and pinched her face. The pain on his face was clear. "What's going on?" Puff. Gu Qiaowan turned her head and just saw Gu Qiaoyue pinch her face. Her hot face turned red and she smiled happily. "Mom, I pinch my face. I don't know if I'm stupid." "This child, how can you say that about your sister? Don't do it if there's only a little left. Go and have a rest in the shade of the tree." Gu Qiaowan happily threw down the wooden shovel for stirring grain, ran to the shade of the tree, drank water with an enamel jar printed with a 5-star red flag, and turned to wink at Gu Qiaowan. Gu Qiaoyue's eyes fell on the enamel jar in her hand, and then looked at the big apricot tree tied to the swing behind her, the walnut tree next to her and a row of persimmon trees. This is clearly her childhood home. Suddenly, an idea came into her mind. Be reborn. Now is that year. Without waiting for an answer, Gu Qiaoyue ran into the house. Newspapers are pasted on the walls of the house, quilts are neatly stacked on the large earth kong, and there are red square tables and square wooden boxes that only exist in the memory of childhood. Gu Qiaoyue remembered that there were their mother's clothes. At the door is a basin rack, on which is an enamel wash basin. Up, there is a perpetual calendar. Gu Qiaoyue walked over with a heavy step and looked at the date on the calendar. June 30th, 1985. Gu Qiaoyue was shocked in her head. She staggered and sat directly on the ground. This was her home in 1985, when she was just 17 years old. She was reborn. Gu Qiaoyue pinched her face again. The pain made her burst into tears. In 1985, all the hardships had not come yet. Slag Dad and Grandma had not forced her mother to death. She had not married that slag man, and her sister had not become bad and killed. Everything could be done again. Gu Qiaowan came into the house and looked at Gu Qiaoyue. She was startled and quickly helped her up. "Sister, what's the matter with you? Why are you crying? Is it uncomfortable? Heatstroke?" He shouted to the outside. "Mom, I don't know how to sit on the ground and cry. Mom, come and see if I have heatstroke." Zhang Peipei, who was busy outside, quickly threw down his wooden shovel and ran into the house. Looking at Gu Qiaoyue, who was crying and laughing, she was also very frightened. "Xiao Yu, what's the matter with you? Tell your mother if you feel bad." Gu Qiaoyue raised her head and looked at the 2 pairs of concerned eyes. She only felt that everything was so real. The hand pinched her leg hard, and the instant pain made her cry in an instant. "It's all right. There was sand in my eyes just now." As soon as Zhang Peipei heard that, he quickly pulled Gu Xiaoyue out into the sun and looked carefully at her eyes. After finding nothing, he said, "You child, now you are collecting wheat everywhere and there are wheat awns flying everywhere. Next time you feel there is something in your eyes, you can't rub it yourself. What if the wheat awns rub your eyes blind?" Gu Xiaoyue nodded skillfully. Whether it is true or just a dream, she enjoys the hard-won lack of maternal love for many years. Gu Xiaoyue is fine. Zhang Peipei goes to cook. Gu Qiaowan comes up to her and looks carefully at Gu Xiaoyue's eyes. "Sister, do your eyes still hurt?" BL.net Gu Xiaoyue shook her head and went back to the only mirror in the house. She reached out and touched her face. Really young. With oval face, thick eyebrows and big eyes, a straight and delicate nose, the skin behind the ears is very white, and the cheeks are a little dark and red. It's not very beautiful as a whole, but it's dignified. This was when she was 17. Now it was the summer vacation, and it was also the year when the fate of the family changed. This year's mid-term exam, Gu Xiaoyue was admitted to high school. The whole family was very happy. Zhang Peipei wrote a letter to Gu Deong, who works on the railway, and said the good news. Just 2 days after the letter was sent, Gu Deong came back. When he came back in the middle of the night, he beat Zhang Peipei when he entered the house. He said that as soon as he came back, he saw a dark figure go out from Zhang Peipei's house and said that he was not at home, so Zhang Peipei asked a wild man to bring him a green hat. At that time, there was a lot of noise. All the neighbors came to watch the excitement. No matter what Zhang Peipei said, Gu Deong didn't believe it and insisted that she find a wild man. In 1985, people's thoughts were not so civilized. Everyone pointed at Zhang Peipei, saying that she was a wave and that she did not abide by women's morality. Gu Deong made a fuss and said that he had no face to stay in the village and left the next day. People in the village felt that Zhang Peipei was indiscreet and began to alienate her. The women chewed their tongue and scolded Zhang Peipei for being cheap and cheap. They all guarded her, as if a man who didn't pay attention to Zhang Peipei would seduce her family. Some men with bad thoughts touched Zhang Peipei's house in the middle of the night. Once Gu Qiaowan saw them and beat them out with a broom. Zhang Peipei couldn't stand the gossip of the villagers and the harassment of the men. She jumped into the well at night. He went crazy when he was rescued. After 2 years of madness, he accidentally fell into the ditch and died. Because of things at home, Gu Xiaoyue naturally didn't go to high school. She took care of the crazy Zhang Peipei at home. The villagers pointed out to their family, and the Gu family either beat or scolded them. Under that kind of gossip, Gu Qiaowan had a hard time in school. He didn't go to school until he graduated from junior high school. Later, he got mixed up with the rascals in other villages, completely deteriorated and lost his life in his 20s. Gu Deong didn't go home for 2 years. When he came back, he brought a woman with a big belly and a 2-year-old son. Later, Gu Qiaoyue knew that Gu Deong had someone outside and was divorced when he came back. For fear that the people in the village would say him, he simply slandered Zhang Peipei for stealing, beat her and went straight away. He didn't come back until the matter subsided. Gu Qiaoyue thought of these old things, and his eyes were cold. Fortunately, everything is still in time. When Gu Qiaowan came in, he just saw Gu Qiaoyue's cold eyes and felt a chill from his back. Sister. I don't know why, she always feels that her sister seems a little different today. Gu Qiaoyue recovered, smiled at Gu Qiaowan and asked, "Qiaowan, did Mom write to Dad?" She doesn't remember when Gu Deong came back, but she still remembers the general day, the 3rd or 4th day after Zhang Peipei wrote to Gu Deong. Mom wrote to Dad last night. You also wrote 2 sentences. Did you forget? Chapter 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Gu Qiaoyue carefully recalled that the time passed too long. She couldn't remember clearly, so she smiled and changed the topic. You're not going to help Mom cook the pot. Gu Qiaowan just wanted to refute, why don't you go, so she reacted that Gu Qiaoyue just got something in her eyes and cried, so she went to the kitchen without saying anything. Gu Qiaoyue walked around the house and looked inside and outside the house. There were shadows of her mother and sister everywhere, full of memories. I couldn't help but turn red again and burst into tears. When I went to the yard, I only felt the air was particularly fresh, and the cicadas' chirping sound was particularly nice. Even the quarreling voice of the aunt and uncle next door was so kind. There was a burst of pride in her heart. Now all the tragedies have not been staged, her mother has not had an accident, her sister has not dropped out of school, has not deteriorated, and has not died unexpectedly. She still has the opportunity to go to high school or even college, and a bright future is waiting for her to create. In 1985, the living conditions were still very poor. Every family had just divided the land for 2 years. The output was low and there was not much grain. It was just enough to eat. In the past 2 days, the mother and daughter were very tired. Zhang Peipei stewed eggs for Qiao Yu and Qiao Wan, mixed his own cucumbers and slipped some miscellaneous flour steamed buns. Mom stewed eggs for you. Eat quickly. Zhang Peipei pushed 2 enamel bowls in front of Gu Qiaoyue. Gu Qiaowan was very happy and ate the bowl. Gu Qiaoyue watched Zhang Peipei take the steamed bread with miscellaneous noodles and eat cucumber dishes. She felt a little bad. She took 2 bites of stewed eggs and pushed it in front of Zhang Peipei. Mom, you eat. I don't like eggs. Zhang Peipei was stunned and frowned. Why don't you like it all of a sudden? Today's food is not delicious. The eggs of 85 were expensive. They were saved to buy money in the city. It was rare for children to have a meal. These 2 days, they were also busy collecting wheat. Zhang Peipei stewed them because they were too tired. Gu Qiaowan also stopped and looked after Qiao Yu strangely. Yesterday, her sister scrambled to eat with her. Elder sister, if you don't eat, I'll eat. Gu Qiaowan tentatively stretched out his hand. Su Qiaoyue stared at her. Don't you have it for your mother? She looked at Zhang Peipei. Mom, you eat more. You're the most tired these 2 days. Zhang Peipei only feels warm in her heart. Where can she not understand Gu Qiaoyue's meaning? The eldest daughter is sensible and knows that she loves her. Zhang Peipei smiles and shakes her head and insists on letting Gu Qiaoyue eat. When Gu Qiaoyue refused, a child suddenly came in at the door, grabbed the enamel bowl on the table and stuffed the eggs into her mouth. After 2 bites, he shouted discontentedly, "Why is it so much?" He looked at the eggs in Gu Qiaowan's bowl again and said overbearing, "Give me yours too." He stretched out his hand to grab it. Gu Qiaowan naturally didn't want to. She turned her back and ate it 2 or 3 times. You loser dare not give me. Woo woo woo. Grandma. I want to eat eggs. I want to eat eggs. The boy was about 7 or 8 years old. He sat on the ground and kicked his legs and cried. Several people came in from outside, led by Mrs. Gu, who was very aggressive, followed by her second daughter.in.law and little daughter.in.law. Seeing her little grandson sitting on the ground crying, Mrs. Gu hurriedly pulled him up, coaxed him in a soft voice and scolded him unclearly. The little bitch who eats alone is shameless. It's to eat poor. Our old family cares about eggs. We also eat eggs when we lose money. Our old family has been unlucky for 8 years. Why did we marry the one who eats alone? Enter the door. Ouch, my poor little grandson, those who kill thousands of knives eat alone. They don't give my little grandson. Gu Qiaoyue listened to her temples and looked at old lady Gu with hatred in her eyes. Well, before she bothered them, they came to the door by themselves. She also knew the 3 in front of her. After the accident, they were absolutely indispensable for forcing Zhang Peipei to jump into the well. Gu Daong poked the matter up and patted his ass and left. Gu Laotai and Gu's two daughter-in-law came to bully them when they were free. They scolded them for their unclean words. Gu Qiaoyue clearly remembered that after her mother's accident, all the food in the yard this year was moved to the old house by Mrs. Gu, and even the sweet potatoes in the field were dug by them. The two sisters were helpless at home. If their grandparents and uncles hadn't often protected them, they might have starved to death. "Mom, it's hot these 2 days. The two children are very tired and have to make up for them. Zhang Peipei is not too weak, but he will never be strong." Gu Qiaoyue's grandfather used to be an accountant of the production team. Zhang Peipei can also read and count. Marrying Gu Daong is considered as a marriage. When they got married, Grandpa's family paid to build 3 houses outside for fear that Gu Daong would not be at home and Zhang Peipei would be bullied in his mother-in-law's house. Last year, the land was divided according to the head. Mrs. Gu thought they had fewer people and less land, and all women couldn't work. She simply let them set up a single family. The family divided 3 acres of land. Mrs. Gu wouldn't let the people in the old house help. Gu Daong was not at home. Whether it was farming or wheat harvesting, it was all done by Zhang Peipei and his 2 daughters. As soon as Granny Gu saw Zhang Peipei talking, she immediately pointed at her and yelled. "Well, you don't lay eggs. What can you make up for 2 money-losing goods? Give 2 money-losing goods to our old family. Dare to beat my little grandson. I'll kill you who can't lay eggs." Old Lady Gu roared and slapped Zhang Peipei in the face. "It's really bad luck for our old family to marry you. We don't shit in the manger. We're just getting me some money-losing goods." Seeing Zhang Peipei hiding in the past, Mrs. Gu was even more angry. "Well, you bitch dare to hide. It's reasonable for you not to shit in the pit." At the same time, another slap greeted Zhang Peipei. As soon as Zhang Peipei was about to hide, her little sister-in-law Li Lingling kindly hugged her. "Mom, stop fighting, sister-in-law, you'll be fine if you admit a mistake." Zhang Peipei couldn't open his eyes and saw that slap would fall on his face. With a crisp sound of "pa," old Lady Gu slapped firmly. But the person beaten was not Zhang Peipei, but Zhang Lingling, the child's daughter-in-law. Zhang Lingling didn't seem to expect that she had been beaten. She covered her face for a long time and didn't respond. After the reaction, she stared at Mrs. Gu and roared loudly. "Mom, you hit me." Mrs. Gu is also a little guilty. It was Zhang Peipei who was disobedient. How did she get the obedient daughter-in-law who gave birth to 2 grandchildren? "Zhang Peipei, you bitch, dare you hide." "I won't kill you bitch," old Lady Gu said and grabbed Zhang Peipei again. Gu Qiaoyue pulled Zhang Peipei behind her, looked at old Lady Gu coldly, and shouted, "Grandma." Gu Qiaoyue shouted loudly, and everyone in the room looked at her. Gu Qiaoyue said coldly, "Grandma, my mother fed my chicken with our sisters, and my sister and I picked up the eggs one by one. Why do we get in the way of Grandma when we eat my eggs?" Old Lady Gu was just silenced by Gu Qiaoyue's roar. Now she felt that she couldn't hang on her face, so she roared immediately. "She is my old family's daughter. In law, the chicken she raises is also our old family's chicken. The eggs she lays are our old family's eggs. It's good for you to stutter when you lose money. You still want to eat our old family's eggs? Let me kill you." Gu took it for granted, grabbed the wooden stool and greeted Gu Qiaoyue. Gu Qiaoyue caught her, grabbed the stool, pulled and pushed, and old Lady Gu sat on the ground. Chapter 3 You are listening at NovelFull.audio. "Grandma, I respect you as an elder and call you Grandma, but don't go too far. We've been separated for so many years, and you can't decide what's going on in my family." Once again, Gu Qiaoyue can be humble and slowly figure it out, but she has suffered too many grievances from them in her previous life. In this life, she doesn't intend to grievance herself and her mother and sister. Dare to call the door, she will call back intact to see who is more cruel. How could old Lady Gu think that the usual submissive girl film dared to do it and sat on the ground crying? Well, you loser, you little bitch, you dare to hit me. Wait until your father comes back to see how to deal with you. Another point is Zhang Peipei. And you, don't occupy the pit for me and don't shit. Hurry to make room for my good grandson, or you'll look good. Which good grandson? Gu Qiaoyue's eyes narrowed dangerously. She remembered that there was such a time in her previous life, but at that time she and her sister hid behind Zhang Peipei. Although Zhang Peipei avoided, she was also slapped. Mrs. Gu scolded and scolded about Zhang Peipei's unborn son. When she left, she also took half a basket of eggs. I didn't say anything about my good grandson, or they didn't notice. Is it? Madame Gu already knows about this. She came here to demonstrate in advance. Old Lady Gu glanced and got up. What, which good grandson is Peng Fei, of course. Hurry up and take out the eggs. It's better to save them for my good grandson to eat. Peng Fei is the 7 or 8-year-old boy who just robbed Gu Qiaoyue's egg soup and sat crying on the ground. Gu's youngest child, the son of the third family, holds Gu in her hand for fear of falling. Gu Qiaoyue looked at old Lady Gu and was sure that she must know something. Grandma, you can't save eggs in summer. You just want to keep them for your newborn good grandson. They will stink. According to the time when Gu Daong brought the boy back in his previous life, it should be right that he was just born now. If Mrs. Gu really knows, this account will be big. Mrs. Gu opened her mouth and scolded. It's difficult for a newborn child not to eat. Will you eat both of the money-losing goods? Bah, you deserve to eat my old Gu's eggs. Sure enough. Gu Qiaoyue's eyes narrowed. When Li Lingling realized that something was wrong, she quickly smiled and said. Look what the child said. Your Pengfei brother is 10 years old. Where is he just born? Stop talking nonsense. If you don't give me the eggs, keep them. Then he turned to Zhang Peipei with a kind face and said, Don't tell me about you, sister.in.law. I have to save some money. The eggs are expensive and reserved for the boy. Even if there is no boy, you can take them to the county to change money and save it. The girls are losing money. They should get married in 2 years. They can't raise well. Mrs. Gu realized that she had said something wrong and didn't want to stay any longer. She shouted to Zhang Peipei to fill him with a basket of eggs and go back to eat for the 4 boys of her second and youngest son's family. Zhang Peipei didn't say anything and turned around to load eggs. This kind of thing happened from time to time before. If she didn't give it to the old lady, she would definitely make trouble. At that time, everyone will have no face. Gu Qiaoyue grabbed her. Mom, there are only a few eggs left at home. You said you wanted to give me and Xiaowan something to eat. Zhang Peipei frowned to see Xiaoyu. She always felt that her daughter was different today. Mrs. Gu has jumped up. Well, you lose money and want to eat our old Gu's eggs. You think beautiful. You of the old 3, go and pack them all for me. Li Lingling walked to the inner room with a smile. Gu Qiaoyue has determined that they know Gu Daong has children outside, and don't want them to feel better. They directly carry the bench to the door of the inner house. Who dares to touch my things? That momentum seemed to hit people at any time. Li Lingling stopped and didn't dare to come forward. The main reason was that the dead girl was really different from the past. She was a little crazy. Even her grandmother dared to hit. Her aunt was really not sure. It seems that what I said just now is not clear enough. No one wants to take away some of my things. You'd better settle what you took before and return it quickly, otherwise it will make you look good. Don't think our mother is easy to bully if they are all women. Dare to bully us. I'll call back all the photos of Xiao Yu. If you don't believe it, try it for me now. Gu Xiaoyue was about to greet them with a bench. Old Lady Gu, Li Lingling and the second daughter in-law who didn't speak from beginning to end, where would Gu Xiaoyue call, so they hurried out. While running, he shouted. Gu Xiaoyue is crazy. Gu Xiaoyue is going to kill her own grandmother. It's bad luck to have a grandma like you. Dare to come to the door next time and kill you. All the anger of previous lives and this life was vented. Gu Xiaoyue slammed the door. He remembered that there was still wheat drying in the yard. Closing the door was easy to be stolen. He quickly opened the door. Gu Qiaowan and Zhang Peipei had already been stunned by Gu Xiaoyue's actions. Sister. Did you just hit Grandma? Gu Qiaowan stared and felt very happy. Grandma didn't like them. The cheap embryo who opened her mouth and closed her mouth lost money. She didn't like it for a long time, but she didn't dare to really do anything. But sister, today Zhang Peipei sighed and said helplessly, Xiao Yu, after all, it's your grandma. You can't do this next time. Gu Xiaoyue was sulking and turned to look at Zhang Peipei and Gu Qiaowan. The woman Gu Daong was looking for was the daughter of his boss. Her ex-husband was also on the railway. He died in an accident and got involved with Gu Daong. Gu Daong will definitely divorce Zhang Peipei for his future, not to mention that both of them already have sons, which is even more unavoidable. Gu Xiaoyue has a headache. She doesn't like Gu Daong, doesn't want Gu Daong and Zhang Peipei to continue, and can't sacrifice Zhang Peipei to complete them like in previous lives. Mom, they bully us. Gu Xiaoyue said ruthlessly that she had no good impression of the Gu family. All the suffering in previous lives began with their family. That's your grandmother, too. She's an elder. You can't do this next time. Well, eat. After dinner, you should load wheat. In 1985, the rural life was not good, and they only had 2 meals. Breakfast was at 9 o'clock and lunch was at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. After eating, the sun was not so poisonous. The mother and daughter packed the wheat in sacks. It was 5 or 6 o'clock after cleaning up. Gu Xiaoyue was a little absent-minded all afternoon. After thinking for a while, he said, Mom, let's go to the county tomorrow and sell the eggs. The money in the family was sent back by Gu Daong before, and they haven't sent it back in the past 2 years. To be exact, Gu Daong hasn't come back for 2 years. It's definitely not a good thing to wait for them when Gu Daong comes back. Before that, they have to get some money. It's impossible to find a chance to earn money in this small village. You have to go to the county town. Chapter 4 You are listening at Novel Full.audio. It's hot in summer. Eggs can't last long. Gu Xiaoyue keeps 4 hens at home and saves them for half a month. If he doesn't sell them, they will be bad. Go with your sister tomorrow. Mom will bask in the wheat at home. The wheat at home has been exposed to 2 suns, and another one will be almost dry and can be put away. Gu Xiaoyue was worried that Zhang Peipei was at home alone. Gu Daong came back just a few days ago. She couldn't let Zhang Peipei have an accident. But at this time, food is also a big deal. Zhang Peipei will not go out until the wheat is well dried. Gu Xiaoyue has to retreat and take the second place. Let's dry the wheat tomorrow and go together the day after tomorrow. Well, that's okay. After negotiation, Zhang Peipei embroidered the insole while it was still bright, and Gu Qiaowan also took the insole and embroidered it. Gu Xiaoyue had embroidered with her before her rebirth, but now Gu Xiaoyue hasn't used needles and thread for years. She has forgotten this skill. Looking at them embroidering insoles, she asked, Mom, we embroidered several pairs. The insole is thick. Inside is old clothes cloth pasted with pulp. Outside is wrapped with white cloth embroidered flowers and words such as wealth and auspiciousness. Zhang Peipei said casually, 7 or 8 pairs. When your father comes back, take him some pears. Mom, Dad hasn't sent money back for 2 years. Gu Qiaoyue frowned. Gu Daong works on the railway. He spends more than 50 yuan a month. In the past, he could send back more than 100 yuan every 6 months. However, in the last 2 years, Gu Daong didn't come back and didn't send back his money. He didn't send anything except a letter in 6 months. Zhang Peipei's embroidered hand paused and said nothing. Gu Qiaoyue said, Dad may not come for the new year. Let's take all the shoe cushions to the county and sell them. I heard that the workers in the county's agricultural machinery factory and brick kiln factory are the most waste shoe cushions. A pair can sell for several cents. Gu Qiaoyue doesn't know how much money there is at home, but it must not be much. In the past, Gu Daong sent money back. Zhang Peipei always took part of it to honor Mrs. Gu, and part of it was used to study for their sisters. Gu Daong didn't send money back for 2 years. Except that he didn't give Mrs. Gu any more money, he didn't save money for school. Really, it's just 2 days to dry the wheat. It's nothing. I can embroider a pair in 2 days. Gu Qiaowan was also excited when he heard a pair of hair. Mom, let's sell it in the county. My sister wants money for high school right away. Zhang Peipei didn't speak for a long time. Finally, he sighed and said, okay, half of the embroidery has been finished in these 2 days. Take it to the county the day after tomorrow to see if it can sell money. Gu Qiaoyue breathed a sigh of relief and knew that there might be no money at home. As a result, Zhang Peipei and Gu Qiaowan embroidered the shoe pad until midnight that night. When it was dark, they continued to embroider by pulling the lamp. Gu Qiaoyue took a needle and embroidered 2 stitches. The thimble couldn't be held. The needle was always poked in her hand. The embroidery was not as good as the original. Even Gu Qiaowan couldn't see it. She kept saying that it was to be used to sell money. Let Gu Qiaoyue embroider well. Gu Qiaoyueshi doesn't embroider well. He just doesn't embroider. Go out and see what else can change money. Take it to the county to buy it the day after tomorrow. As a result, the 85-year-old family is really poor. It's not easy to find something that can change money. However, Gu Qiaoyue is not discouraged. Now the reform and opening up is the time for development. It can be said that there are business opportunities everywhere. If she comes back from rebirth, she can live a better life as long as she catches a bit of them. Of course, before that, we must first solve the current crisis and not let Zhang Peipei have an accident. The next day, after drying the wheat and taking advantage of Zhang Peipei's cooking, Gu Qiaoyue pulled Gu Qiaowan back, cut a lot of wild vegetables, cleaned them at home, and planned to take them to the county the next day to see if they could sell them for money. I packed up early in the evening and went to bed. When they got up in the middle of the night, the mother and daughter locked the door and rushed to the county. At the moment, there was no car, and the mother and daughter didn't raise cattle. They had to rely on one foot to go to the county. They set out at 3 o'clock in the middle of the night. It was just dawn in the county. In 1985, the county was still very backward, but it was much better than the mud adobe houses in the village. The quadrangles with green bricks and large tiles were left over from the past, and the 2-story small buildings with red bricks were just built in recent 2 years. Gu Qiaoyue took a turn, roughly knew the price of eggs, and picked up a piece of 25 kilograms. Zhang Peipei said on the side, the price has risen. It was 1 kilogram a year ago. Well, let's go to the market and sell it quickly. In the past 2 years, more people have done business. They dare to sell their own vegetables, corn, sweet potatoes and eggs, which has formed a market. A few years ago, when shopping, I had to go to the supply and marketing cooperatives. Even if there were eggs at home, few people dared to sell them. It was speculation and shameless. However, those who dared to do business in those years have now made a lot of money. She went into business in the 1980s. In 85 this year, she is catching up with the trend of the times. She must do something when she seizes the opportunity. With the memory of rebirth, she will never live harder than her previous life. The market is in the middle of the county's brick kiln factory and agricultural machinery factory. The workers in these two factories are well paid and are more willing to spend money on food and drink than ordinary people. In the past, there had been several businesses. Jean Pepe had come to sell eggs several times before, and he was also familiar with this. Gu Xiaoyue didn't care. She said to go around the county. Jean Pepe didn't say anything. She just told her not to run away and come back later. Gu Qiaowan also wanted to follow, but Gu Xiaoyue was fast and disappeared after turning a corner. Gu Qiaowan had no choice but to accompany Jean Pepe. It's not that Gu Xiaoyue doesn't want to take Gu Qiaowan, but that she wants to look for business opportunities. It's better not to let her family know for the time being. They don't know about Gu Daong yet. They are afraid that Gu Daong will come back in 2 days and be exposed again. Then things will not go in the unknown direction. Gu Xiaoyue wandered around the county alone. Qingyang County in 1985 was not big. The only thing supporting the economy of Qingyang County was these 3 factories. However, Gu Xiaoyue knew that in 2 years, the meat joint factory would close down. Then the agricultural machinery factory was privately acquired. The brick kiln factory supported it for several years and soon couldn't stand the closure. Since then, although Qingyang County has no support from these 3 factories, the entertainment industry has sprung up a lot. The canteen has become a large supermarket and the small guest house has become a chain of hotels. By the 90s, houses were built one after another, and real estate developers began to make a lot of money. Soon, large supermarkets, high-end entertainment cities, hotels, catering industries and schools rose one by one. Qingyang County developed rapidly and became Qingyang City in a few years. I remember all this was due to the county magistrate at that time. What's his name? Gu Xiaoyue thought for a long time and didn't remember. He was bumping into an old man in a black tunic suit. He was in a hurry with a blue and white porcelain bottle in his arms. He was bumped by Gu Xiaoyue and left in a hurry without saying anything. Gu Xiaoyue's eyes were fixed on the blue and white porcelain bottle, which looked familiar. Chapter 5 You are listening at novelfull.audio. Gu Xiaoyue followed up without thinking. The old man walked into an alley. Gu Xiaoyue was stunned. She wondered where it was. This is an antique street in Qingyang County. It was gradually known a few years later. The reason why Qingyang County became Qingyang City in previous generations is that this street accounts for the majority. And now most of the people living in this street are invisible rich. After turning a few corners, the old man in Zhongshan suit entered an antique shop, came out soon, and then entered another shop. Gu Xiaoyue followed him and watched him go into 4 shops. When he was driven out of the 5th shop, the old man in Zhongshan suit finally couldn't carry it and begged. It's true. It's used by Lord Qianlong. It's absolutely true, not false. Take a good look. It's true. Please take a good look. The familiar-looking bottle used by Lord Qianlong Gu Xiaoyue coaxed in her mind. She remembered the origin of the porcelain vase. In the past few years, there was a variety show on treasure hunting. At that time, there was such a porcelain vase. Experts estimated that it was more than 2 million yuan. At that time, Gu Xiaoyue was poor and was looking forward to getting rich overnight. He liked to watch this variety show when he had nothing to do, and envied those people who had inherited treasures in their families. She also has a certain impression of this blue and white porcelain. At that time, he was a middle-aged man when he took the bottle to the variety show. He said that in the 1980s, there was an accident at home. His grandfather took the bottle and sold it once. Unfortunately, he didn't sell it. They all said it was false. Later, the family also thought that the madman was fake and didn't care much, but the bottle had a small mouth, a wide belly, ears, clear and luxurious patterns and good looking appearance, so it remained. Until there was a treasure hunt program, I took it out with a try attitude. At that time, experts estimated that the price of the bottle would rise in a few years. The middle-aged man didn't agree to auction if he wanted to sell more money. As a result, he didn't know it was bad luck. As soon as he took it home, he accidentally fell and broke it, and hid it in his hand. A middle-aged man who was not a rich family could not stand the blow when he saw a large sum of money flying. He didn't understand and jumped off a building the next day. At that time, the media also reported that the treasure hunt program was also impacted. Gu Qiaoyue looked at the bottle and was eager to buy it, but she also knew that she could not buy it according to the current situation at home. What shall I do? Gu Qiaoyue thought that the man had gone. She wanted to ask him how much the bottle cost first. Before he could walk over, the old man was pushed by the impatient shopkeeper and was about to fall. That's 2 million. Gu Qiaoyue didn't care about anything else. He hurried to help the old man. There was also a middle-aged man holding the old man with her. Old gentleman, are you all right? Gu Qiaoyue asked anxiously. Middle-aged men also give caring eyes. The old man waved his hand with a dispirited look. Thank you, I'm fine. Then he still had to go inside. Gu Qiaoyue stopped him. The shopkeeper had indicated that he would never buy, and there would be no result if he went again. The middle-aged man asked, does the old man want to sell porcelain bottles? Gu Qiaoyue looked up at the middle-aged man, but his eyes widened. She was also impressed by this face. He Jinchen, the county magistrate of Qinyang County, developed Qinyang County a little bit and became the leader of Qinyang City in the future. This man is definitely a character. Gu Qiaoyue thought about it and said with a smile, old sir, your bottle is real. They don't know it. It's their clumsy eyes. You should keep it well. Maybe you can buy it at a good price in the future. The old man was sad and cried, alas, I can't wait. I can't help it. My little grandson is ill. If it wasn't, I wouldn't want to sell this bottle. It must have been used by Lord Qianlong and came out of the palace. The old man was so anxious that he was going to cry. If he didn't have to, who would sell the heirloom baby? Others thought it was false, but he knew it was absolutely true. It was handed down from generation to generation, and he had heard from his grandfather that his family was a red man in front of the emperor, but the times had changed and declined. Don't worry, sir. I see that the blue and white double-ear zun is also true. The blue and white double-ear zun was originally a typical type of wear in the reign of Qianlong, and it is absolutely true from the color and decoration of the blue and white. Sir, why don't I accompany you to see if someone else wants to buy it? Gu Qiaoyue kept looking at the look of He Jinchen on the side. Gu Qiaoyue can't afford it, but the middle-aged man may be able to afford it. As long as he buys it, he can indirectly get to know a big man, help the old man solve his urgent needs, and save the bottle. You know, the bottle was broken decades later, and no one took advantage of it. But it's not necessarily in the hands of He Jinchen. He is the county magistrate and the future mayor. He is not like a civilian family. Collecting a bottle can break the bottle. Does the girl know? Obviously, the old gentleman didn't expect to know this blue and white double-ear respect when he knew anyone. Obviously, he met someone who knows something today. The girl is really younger. If she doesn't speak, she can't see that she is an expert at all. I don't know much, but it looks like it's true. Gu Qiaoyue said modestly. The girl is so modest that she can clearly say that this is blue and white double-ear respect, but it doesn't look like she doesn't know anything. The old man met him and happily took Gu Qiaoyue to tell the story of blue and white double-ear respect. The story begins with her great-grandfather's grandfather. After finishing the story, the old man said, "Alas, there are few knowledgeable people in this age, and even fewer people dare to touch this thing. Although several years have passed since the revolution, many people still dare not touch this kind of thing. However, there is a saying that, those who are bold enough to die and those who are timid enough to starve to death. Those who dare to think and do have made a lot of money in this era. Those who dare not think and do can only fail to keep up with the trend of the times, are submerged by the trend of the times, and finally can only live at the bottom." To tell the truth, Gu Xiaoyue really wanted to buy this porcelain vase, but she also had no money. "Uncle, you don't seem to have no money. Why don't you help the old man? His grandson is ill and is in urgent need of money." Gu Xiaoyue was a little uneasy when he said this. He was afraid that he would take himself as the old gentleman's trust. After pondering, Gu Xiaoyue said again. "Uncle, I'm really not the old man's trust. I think the old man really needs money when he is ill. Otherwise, I won't sell this thing. Otherwise, uncle, let's go to the old man's house together. And I'm willing to guarantee you with my personality that this bottle is absolutely true. If you buy it and find it fake, how about going to Rongshu village to find me?" Gu Xiaoyue won't open her mouth casually, but since she has identified it, she wants to gamble. This middle-aged man is the head of Qingyang County. It's absolutely good for her to know a big man. Chapter 6. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Gu Xiaoyue stared at He Jinchen closely. She was nervous. Success or failure was in one fell swoop. If He Jinchen believes and buys this bottle and finds it true, even if he doesn't read his own good, he can think of himself when he sees this bottle. Maybe he can really help in the future. But if he doesn't believe it and takes himself as a trust, then it's not worth the loss to leave a bad impression in the heart of a county magistrate. This is a gamble for Gu Xiaoyue now. She is willing to gamble on this opportunity. He Jinchen looked at Gu Xiao, but the more he saw, the more frightened he was. At the age of 15 or 16, she was wearing a patched blue coat and black trousers, but she couldn't hide the occasional light in her eyes. This is a very clever little girl. And she seems to know who she is. Little girl, this is serious. I'm going to buy a birthday gift for my father. In law. This bottle is really exquisite. Would you like to talk about it in detail? The old man nodded excitedly, and Gu Xiaoyue was relieved. It seems that he should be 10 in 8 or 9. Seeing that the old man agreed, He Jinchen looked at Gu Xiaoyue and said with a smile, "The little girl will go together." Gu Xiaoyue thought for a moment and shook her head. "I'll forget it. I accompanied my mother to sell eggs in the county. Just now I saw the old man hurrying over with a bottle in his arms, so I followed him to have a look. Now my mother must be worried. I have to go back quickly." Gu Xiaoyue told the truth. Although she also wanted to know whether their transaction would succeed in the end, if she did, she would be really entrusted. He Jinchen and the old gentleman were stunned. A girl who can tell the truth at a glance and has extraordinary conversation temperament is just selling eggs with her family. However, looking at the clothes on Gu Xiaoyue, they knew it and didn't force it any more. Gu Xiaoyue was about to leave, but there came a man in black Zhongshan suit and polished black shoes. Gu Xiaoyue was stunned. He just thought the man looked a little dazzling, but he didn't stay and went straight away. When the man came over, He Jinchen greeted him warmly. "Moyan boy is coming. Come and have a look at this bottle. Your grandpa likes these antiques best. Look at this bottle. Will your grandpa like it?" Sima Yan glanced and nodded expressionless. "Just look good, uncle." He Jinchen glared at him. "It's better for the little girl to be enthusiastic just now. Well, you wait and go. I'll talk to the old gentleman about the bottle." He Jinchen pulled the old man into the tea house not far away. Si Moyan was really waiting. Gu Xiaoyue walked some way and found a hiding place to hide. She watched them enter the tea house and waited patiently. She needed to confirm whether the bottle had reached He Jinchen. When hiding, Gu Qiaoyue always felt that a line of sight fell on her. When she looked for it again, she couldn't find it. This uncontrollable feeling made Gu Qiaoyue very uncomfortable. It was not easy until He Jinchen came down and held the bottle in He Jinchen's arms. Gu Qiaoyue quickly turned and left. After turning a corner, Gu Qiaoyue felt relieved. Gu Qiaoyue left, and Si Moyan also took back his eyes. Gu Qiaoyue pondered how to make a fortune all the way. In almost a year, electronic watches and BB machines will flow to Qingyang County. I remember that in the earliest days, a BB function bought more than 2,000 yuan, and an electronic watch could buy dozens or hundreds of yuan. The price is very expensive. It is the favorite of many working-class and rich college students. Now maybe there are these things in Shenzhen, but Qingyang County is located in the mainland. With the current speed of goods circulation, it will take at least a year or two to wait here. If she can seize this opportunity, she can make a profit at least. But now very poor, she needs start up funds. I walked around the county town. When I returned to the market, I just caught up with the lunch time of the two factories, and the canteen was next to the market. Gu Qiaoyue took a look inside. The food was simple, but the steamed bread was white. It was enviable to be in the countryside. Gu Qiaoyue sighed in her heart. She had to rest when she wanted to sell rice at the gate of the factory. When Zhang Peipei was found, the eggs and shoe cushions had been sold out. He was eating two steamed bread while waiting for Gu Qiaoyue. Gu Qiaoyue looked at other stalls who also ate miscellaneous noodles and steamed bread. His eyes lit up and he had an idea in his heart. From the street to the end of the street, they sell all kinds of things made by themselves, but they don't sell rice. Maybe they all know that there are canteens in the factories here. Take another look at these people, while gnawing at the cold miscellaneous flour steamed bread in their hands, while looking at the envious and eager eyes in the canteen of the factory, Gu Qiaoyue's mind became active. The staff canteen is not open to the public. She can only sell it to those who set up stalls. Sister, you're back. Come and eat steamed bread and go home. Gu Qiaowan saw Gu Qiaoyue with sharp eyes. Gu Qiaoyue went back and picked up the miscellaneous flour steamed bread and water handed over by Zhang Peipei. While eating, he thought about what to buy. When she left home in her previous life, she sold rugamo and could make it. It could be sold, but meat is expensive these days. These people are not necessarily willing to eat it and lose money when it is cheap. Why don't you mainly sell steamed buns with cold skin? Selling rugamo by the way. Gu Qiaoyue had a dispute in her heart. After eating the steamed bread, she greeted her home. Let's go home. No matter what calculations she has in mind, she has to wait until Gu Daiyong's affairs are solved, otherwise Gu Daiyong will have to spit blood if it's cheaper at that time. On the way, Gu Qiaowan said excitedly, eggs sold for a total of 7 yuan and 5 yuan, wild vegetables sold for 30 cents, 8 pairs of shoe cushions sold for 3 yuan and 4 cents and 3 cents for one pair. I'll embroider every day when I go back. When school starts, maybe it'll be enough for your tuition. Gu Qiaoyue was warm in her heart, smiled and nodded, well, you can embroider well. This is her sister. If there were no accident at home in her previous life, her sister would not learn bad and die. Gu Qiaoyue's eyes flashed cold. This time, she wanted everything, but she would never want Gu Daiyong in Gu's family. After selling money and finding a way to make money, Gu Qiaowan was very excited all the way. Counting that she can embroider a pair of insoles in 2 days and 2 months after leaving school, she can embroider 30 pairs. 30 pairs is 9 yuan. My sister's tuition must be enough. Gu Qiaoyue didn't say anything, nor did he say what he thought. When passing Shilin village, Gu Qiaoyue stopped. Mom, let's stop by Grandma's house. I miss my uncle. Okay, I just went to your grandmother's house to ask for more pairs of shoes. Many people didn't buy them because they didn't fit. The three changed their ways and went to the uncle's house in Shirlin village. Chapter 7. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. When they arrived at Shirlin village, the villagers greeted Zhang Pei with a smile. At this time, the wages of workers are relatively high. Zhang Pei married a worker, and her husband is handsome. People in Shirlin village envy her. Zhang Pei also said hello one by one with a smile. Zhang Hosheng heard Zhang Pei coming from a distance and came out with his little son on his back. Elder sister, why did you come so late today? Seeing her uncle again, Gu Qiaoyue only felt that her eyes were sour. She couldn't help running over and hugging Zhang Hosheng. This is her uncle, who took care of many of her uncles in previous lives. Uncle, I miss you. Gu Qiaoyue's sudden action stunned both his sister and brother, and the grandmother and box who followed him were also stunned. Grandma Wu Honglian said with a smile, "Oh, look who's coming. My Yuer girl and Waner girl are coming. Come into the house and her wife will bring me 2 rock candy." He Tsuanfang went to get rock candy with a smile and stuffed a few pieces into Gu Qiaoyue's and Gu Qiaowan's hands. Gu Qiaoyue also quickly let go of Zhang Hosheng and said with a red face, "Grandma, Bok's son, uncle, my sister, and I miss you." Wu Honglian smiled on her face, pulled the 2 sisters into her arms, looked at this, looked at which, and said with a smile. "The moon's mouth is so sweet. I'm eating the rock candy given by the box. Of course it's sweet." Gu Qiaoyue's words made everyone in the room laugh. Wu Honglian took Zhang Pei to talk. Uncle Zhang Hosheng also said that if you have any help, you must say it. He Tsuanfang said that Zhang Pei had no one to help him collect the wheat, and he didn't know what to do when he came home to find someone. He tired the 2 children. Zhang Pei wants to be strong, and her mother has a lot of work. Every family is busy collecting wheat. She has no good intention to come to find her. Now he smiled and said, "There's not much work. We're all busy." Gu Qiaoyue asked, "Grandma, have you finished drying your wheat?" "Finished drying, just finished drying today. Let's go and stay with Grandma and Cusi these 2 days. I haven't had a good talk with Grandma and Cusi for a long time." This is the main purpose of Gu Qiaoyue's visit today. Gu Daong came back and wanted to find something. At that time, Grandma and Xiangzi were there to see what tricks he could play. If he really plays tricks, it will ruin his reputation. Wu Honglian looks at Gu Qiaoyue and then at Zhang Pei. "Yuer, why do you want Grandma to live in your house?" After living for nearly 70 years, Wu Honglian suddenly realized that Gu Qiaoyue's words were wrong. She thought her daughter was angry at her mother-in-law's house, so she wanted to ask more questions. Gu Qiaoyue said with a smile, "Grandma, my sister and I miss you, and I recently learned a massage technique. When I come to my house, I can help Grandma press it well, and I can press it for you, too. That feeling is good. She goes to clean up, and our mother and I go to ask your girl to press it." Wu Honglian also wants to talk to her daughter in the evening when her work is finished. After persuading Wu Honglian, He Tsuanfang naturally had no problem. He packed up his things, held his youngest son, and went to Gu Qiaoyue's house together. Shilin village and Rongshu village are separated by a village, and they arrive in half an hour. That night, He Tsuanfang and Wu Honglian crowded in Zhang Pei's room with little Zhang Shua, who was only 3 years old. Gu Qiaoyue and Gu Qiaowan are still in their own room. After a tired day, Gu Qiaowan soon fell asleep. Gu Qiaoyue stayed awake. "I was thinking that Gu Daong should come back today." Sure enough. At more than 9 o'clock that night, Gu Daong's cries suddenly sounded outside. "Well, you Zhang Pei, you're shameless. If I'm not here, you'll find me a mistress at home. Zhang Pei, I won't kill you today." If you don't tell me why and who the man ran out of your house just now, I'll kill you a dead bitch. Jean Pepe, open the door for me. Who went out just now? When Gu Qiaoyue heard the sound, she got up at the first time. Gu Qiaowan also woke up and said vaguely, Sister, what happened outside? I don't know. Get up quickly. I'll go out first. Gu Qiaoyue said and went out. Outside, He Tsuanfang and Zhang Peipei also got up. Grandma was comforting her little nephew who was frightened to cry by Gu Dayong's roar. Zhang Peipei, open the door for me. If I don't kill you, you dare to find a man behind my back. Wear a green hat for me, I'll kill you today. Gu Qiaoyue was angry. She went over and suddenly opened the door. Looking at Gu Dayong standing outside, she angrily said, Gu Dayong, do you still have a little shame and shout anything? It was this man who broke up the family. His mother died miserably and his sister died miserably, leaving her alone to face her vicious stepmother. Gu Qiaoyue, you dead girl, die for me. Where's your mother? Tell me who went out just now. Gu Dayong shouted loudly, and Gu Qiaoyue gave him a cold look. Stop him at the door. Dad, what are you talking about? Gu Dayong shouted recklessly, Zhang Peipei, you bitch, come out and see if I don't kill you. You sneaking bitch. Gu Qiaoyue held the door against her, and Gu Dayong shouted loudly. After a while, the neighbors turned on the lights one after another, and someone came this way. Gu Qiaoyue saw that the time was ripe, so he stepped aside. Gu Dayong staggered in. As soon as he came in, he saw Zhang Peipei standing in the hall, pointing at her and scolding her. Well, you Zhang Peipei, you dare to give me a green hat. I have to kill you today. In order to succeed today, he bought 2 bottles of wine in the town when he came back. He drank dizzy all the way. I'm brave. I only know that if I make such a fuss, I will be able to dump Zhang Peipei openly, and no one will gossip about him. Gu Qiaoyue looked at Gu Dayong coldly, stood at the door and stopped He Tsuanfang and Wu Honglian from showing up. Gu Dayong, what do you mean? Zhang Peipei is not a fool. Now she has heard what Gu Dayong said, but she still doesn't understand. She somehow stole someone. You bitch, you don't admit it. I saw it just now. I have to kill you bitch today. There was a lot of noise here. Soon the neighbors came with flashlights and talked around the door in the evening. How did Gu Dayong come back? What happened? What else can I do? Gu Dayong came back at a bad time and caught his daughter-in-law stealing. No, Zhang Peipei looks very serious. How can he steal? I don't know. It's going on. Gu Dayong saw that there were more people, and he was even more excited. He was about to fight when he pulled Zhang Peipei's hair. I'll kill you bitch, I'll let you steal. Gu Qiaowan was so frightened that she turned pale that she pulled Gu Dayong out of the fight. Dad, have something to say. Don't hit your mother, sister. Come and help. Seeing that the time was ripe, Gu Qiaoyue also came out and pulled Gu Dayong to cry. Dad, what are you talking about? Grandma says you have a wife and children outside. You don't want your mother. Just say it directly. Why do you have to slander your mother? Grandma and Box are both in the house. How can your mother steal? Chapter 8. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Gu Qiaoyue's voice was very loud and made it clear what happened. Both the people in the house and the people watching the excitement outside the house heard it clearly. Zhang Peipei was frozen. Xiao Yu, what are you talking about? Your father has a wife and children outside. Gu Qiaoyue cried and nodded. Mom, I secretly heard what my grandmother said that day. The woman was the daughter of my father's boss. They already had a son. My grandmother said that my father would not want my mother sooner or later. I was afraid my mother was sad, so I didn't say it. Unexpectedly. I didn't expect my father to despise my mother as soon as he came back. You stole. Gu Qiaoyue began to cry and cried louder and louder. The people around talked again, but the object of discussion changed. Dad, Grandma, and the box are in the house. How can my mother steal people? Even if you don't want my mother, you can't so bad my mother's reputation. How can you make my mother behave in the future? You're going to kill my mother. Gu Qiaoyue shouted loudly. In his previous life, Gu Daong really forced Zhang Peipei to death, and Gu Qiaoyue's grief and anger at this moment also showed his true feelings. Dad, how can you do this to your mother? You are happy at work outside. You have 3 acres of land at home. Mom and a woman take us to plant and harvest little by little. Even if there is no credit, it will be hard. You haven't sent money home for 2 years, and your family is almost out of money. Grandma's family has to play the autumn wind. My mother respects Grandma and provides her as her own mother. Half of the money you send back is given to her, and some eggs are given every few days. How can you do this to your mother? Gu Qiaoyue cried loudly, and Zhang Peipei was also wiping tears. She really didn't think that her husband who hadn't come back for 2 years would force her to death. Wu Honglian angrily handed her grandson to He Tsuanfang and grabbed Gu Daong for a fight. I beat you to death, Gu Daong. How can you treat my daughter like this? My daughter married you and gave birth to 2 daughters for you. If you say no, you don't want it. Unexpectedly, you still abuse her like this. Gu Daong is still confused at the moment. He doesn't understand how things suddenly become like this. It's all planned. It shouldn't be like this. He suddenly stood up and pushed Wu Honglian away. Wu Honglian is so old that she is not the opponent of Gu Daong. With such a push, she sits directly on the ground. Gu Qiaoyue was quick-eyed and hurried to help her. Grandma, are you okay? Wu Honglian stood up, turned around and cried with Zhang Peipei in her arms. My poor daughter, what evil did I do to marry you to such a scum? There was a sudden uproar at home. Gu Qiaoyue pointed to Gu Daong and asked, Dad, you really don't want your mother? Gu Daong was tongue-tied when asked. He couldn't say anything for a moment. Gu Qiaoyue deliberately blocked the door and asked Gu Daong to shout outside, which attracted a lot of people. At present, there is no TV in the countryside. It's summer and it's dark. I just went to bed and didn't fall asleep. I came out as soon as I heard the noise. Someone saw that the Gu family was very noisy. Before they came, they went to the old house and called Mrs. Gu. Mrs. Gu knew that her son had come back and it was successful. She came with her second son, second daughter.in.law and youngest son and daughter.in.law. As soon as he came in, he shouted, Good Zhang Peipei, you dare to steal. I'll kill you bitch. The onlookers looked at old lady Gu with contempt in their eyes. Gu Qiaoyue sneered and pulled old lady Gu. Grandma, you can see clearly. My wife and grandma are both here. They were in the same room with my mother just now. How can they steal? Catch thieves, catch stolen goods, catch traitors and catch pairs. I saw my mother stealing, so you shouted to me here. Old lady Gu also saw Wu Honglian and He Tsuanfang now. She jumped in her heart, but she still shouted. What I saw in that eye, I saw in both eyes, is that she Zhang Peipei stole people. Son, we can't have such a woman. Her mother's mother is just in time. Get back to her mother's house quickly. We can't afford such a woman. Really. It seems that grandma is determined to make room for your son's lover outside. Gu Qiaoyue sneered. What mistress, don't talk nonsense. Old lady Gu's eyes twinkled. Gu Qiaoyue ignored her weak argument and said coldly, even if grandma wants my mother to give your son's mistress and the little grandson a place, she should see clearly. This house was built by my grandmother when my mother got married. Even if he went out, it should be Gu Daong. If you want a mistress and want to occupy the house my grandmother built for my mother, you deserve it. What, Grandpa and Grandpa Gade, they are all married. I always care about my family. Mrs. Gu shouted. Then Grandma just doesn't want to take your little grandson in. Gu Qiaoyue sneered. Why don't my little grandson come in? Mrs. Gu yelled and turned to point at Zhang Pei and scolded, she doesn't lay eggs, occupies the pit, doesn't shit, doesn't give my old Gu family grandchildren, and she can't let my son have children from others. How can Wu Honglian let them bully her daughter like this? She will fight with Mrs. Gu when she comes up. Zhang Pei grabbed her and said, Mom, you're old. You don't have to. Zhang Pei wiped her tears and looked at Gu Daong. She just felt that she didn't know the man. Gu Daong, what your mother said is true. You really have a woman outside and have a son for you. Before Gu Daong spoke, old lady Gu jumped up. Well, you Zhang Pei, what's your qualification to ask my son like that? You're not looking for a mistress at home. Just now my son saw you stealing. Gu Qiaoyue sneered and ignored her. Everyone can see the right and wrong clearly. If Zhang Pei can steal people in front of his sister-in-law and mother, it will be a big lie in the world. Gu Qiaoyue also looked at Gu Daong and waited for his answer. Gu Daong woke up at the moment. He knew that he had messed up the matter. It had become such a mess and his reputation had disappeared. He just couldn't admit it. And if you don't admit it today and bring it back later, others will only look down on him even more. Unless he doesn't want a son and wife. At the moment, in Gu Daong's heart, the one outside is his wife. Gu Daong never spoke. Zhang Pei's heart sank to the bottom of the valley and staggered back 2 steps. Divorce, you go. My father and mother built this house for me. Don't think about it. I raised my daughter. Don't think about it. Mrs. Gu jumped up. What house is yours? When you arrive at my old home, it's my old home. If you want to go, you're a cheap bastard who can't give birth to a son. Go. Gu Daong also wanted face. After seeing the jolly old lady Gu, she shouted in a deep voice. Mom, stop it. The house is indeed built by Pei's mother's house. It should be theirs. I clean myself out of the house and go now. Chapter 9 You are listening at novelfull.audio. Gu Daong left, and old lady Gu was still shouting behind. Son, you are stupid. Without a house, where will my little grandson live when he comes back? Gu Daong suddenly stopped and turned his head to look after the old lady. His eyes seemed to eat her. If it weren't for old lady Gu's loud voice, how could Xiao Yu know that he had a son outside? Mom, stop talking and save me some face. Today, he can't stay in Banyan Village. Everyone knows that he has a new love outside. He dislikes his wife and designs to slander her. He steals people. With so many people watching today, it will spread all over Shaliba village tomorrow. Old lady Gu was stared at by her son and dared not speak. In her heart, she hated Zhang Pei. If Zhang Pei cleans up and leaves the house will be their old home, and their little grandson will pick it up. The old Gu family left, and the people watching the excitement in the yard also left one after another. They came to comfort Zhang Pei when they could talk about going together. Gu Qiaoyue watched on the side, relieved that this stubble was finally over. Although Zhang Pei is sad and hard to accept at the moment, she will forget after a long time. Anyway, the first step of her destiny has finally changed. At least you don't have to be pointed out by the villagers. As for Gu Daong and the old Gu family, Gu Qiaoyue sneered. This is only the first step. Later, wait and see. It was very late. Gu Qiaoyue politely sent off those who comforted Zhang Pei. There are only 3 mothers and daughters left in the room, as well as Wu Honglian and He Tsuanfang, plus a 3-year-old Zhang Shua who doesn't understand anything. Mom, don't cry. It's better for such a scum man to see it earlier. Gu Qiaoyue said comfortingly. Gu Qiaowan also coaxed Zhang Peipei to stop crying. Wu Honglian scolded the old Gu family and Gu Deong. He Cuanfang comforts Zhang Peipei while taking care of Wu Honglian. Little sister, Yue is right. It's good for Gu Deong to leave early, otherwise it's really bad for him to take his son back and rob the house. Gu Qiaoyue went to comfort Wu Honglian again. Grandma, don't cry. My sister and I don't have a father now. In the future, we all have to point to Grandma to take care of us. Grandma, don't cry. Wu Honglian touched Gu Qiaoyue's face and looked at her painfully. My poor Yue, in the future, Grandma and your mother will take care of you together, as well as your uncle's family. We are a family, not the wolf-hearted dogs of the old family. I just feel cold. How can Gu Deong be such a wolf in the heart and dog in order to discredit your mother's reputation for women outside? Speaking of this, Gu Qiaoyue also has cold eyes. Zhang Peipei cried again for a while. He Cuanfang comforted him and greeted him to sleep. Back in the house, Gu Qiaowan also hugged Gu Qiaoyue and cried. Elder sister, how can Dad do this? How can he go so far? Gu Deong hasn't come back for 2 years. Gu Qiaowan is 2 years younger than Gu Qiaoyue. This year is just 15. In her impression, Gu Deong is a loving father and will bring her delicious and fun every time she comes back. He has admitted it. Don't cry. We'll live a good life with Mom in the future. We'll be without this father. Gu Qiaowan stopped talking and cried for half the night with Gu Qiaoyue in her arms. Few people really fell asleep that night. The next morning, Gu Qiaoyue said, Mom, why don't you go through the divorce formalities and distinguish the family property, or they might have to make a fuss. They dare. Wu Honglian roared with red eyes. She hated those old family members to the bone. After thinking all night, Zhang Peipei has calmed down and said, after dinner, I'll find him to go to the county and get the certificate. She thought clearly that Gu Deong didn't necessarily want the house if he could do something to damage her reputation. She has only 2 daughters left now. If she doesn't even have a house, how can she live with her 2 daughters? Looking at Zhang Peipei's appearance, Gu Qiaoyue breathed a sigh of relief. Gu Qiaoyue went to the old Gu's house and said she was going to apply for a divorce certificate in the county. She was scolded by Mrs. Gu pointing to her nose. Gu Qiaoyue didn't care, but left after Gu Deong nodded. After eating early, Zhang Peipei went to the county with Gu Qiaoyue and He Cuanfang. Wu Honglian also wanted to go, but she couldn't go far when she was old, so she went back with Gu Qiaowan. By the way, she told her grandpa and uncle what happened at home last night. Old Lady Gu also wanted to go, but Gu Deong didn't let her go. When Gu Deong left, her daughter Law Li Lingling whispered. My sister Law may not only divorce, but also separate families. My brother has made a lot of money these years. As soon as Mrs. Gu heard that, she took her 2 sons and daughter Law and went out. When you get to the Civil Affairs Bureau, you have to go through the divorce formalities and divide the family property by the way. Gu Deong slept all night. He seemed to be aware of his wrongdoing. When he told him to clean himself out of the house, he had no opinion at all. After completing the formalities, Gu Qiaoyue breathed a sigh of relief and took Zhang Peipei away. At the door, Gu Deong shouted to Gu Qiaoyue. Xiao Yu, although I divorced your mother, I'm still your father. Gu Qiaoyue stopped, turned to look at him and sneered. It seems that you still don't understand the situation. My sister and I belong to my mother. To Gu Deong, he doesn't want to call his father a word. In the most difficult time of his previous life, he and the woman kicked her out. She cried and begged outside all night, but she didn't see his soft heart. She was embarrassed for half her life. He was pregnant with Wenxiang Nephrite, rose step by step, and finally became the director. This time, she just wanted to see him embarrassed. How did you become like this, Dad? There's no way. Gu Daong looked at Gu Xiaoyue strangely. He didn't understand how the clever daughter in his memory became like this. It must be Zhang Peipei, who taught her daughter badly. Zhang Peipei, did you not let your daughter call my father? You are really vicious. I should have dumped a woman like you long ago. Looking at his appearance, Gu Xiaoyue sneered twice and looked at Gu Daong coldly. Gu Daong, the moment you find that woman, you should think of this day. I don't call your father because you don't deserve it and have nothing to do with my mother. Let me see you scold my mother again. Don't blame me for not talking about the past father-daughter relationship. Gu Xiaoyue finished, took Zhang Peipei and left. Zhang Peipei was really cold at the moment. At this time, her husband, who used to trust most, pushed all her faults on her. Just like Yue said, don't want such a man. Without him, she has passed these years. As soon as Gu Xiaoyue went out, they ran into Mrs. Gu's family, who came in a hurry. Well, you bitch, did you take all my son's property? You shameless bitch, I'll kill you. Chapter 10. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. You can see clearly. This is the Civil Affairs Bureau, not your backyard. As soon as Mrs. Gu came up, she caught Zhang Peipei and wanted to fight. Naturally, Gu Xiaoyue didn't want to, so she pushed Mrs. Gu away. The two daughters in law of the Gu family quickly helped old lady Gu. The two sons stopped Gu Xiaoyue's three people one before and one after the other, looking like they were going to fight. Zhang Peipei, you cheap bastard, have you robbed my son's family property? You're shameless. You can't have a son. What's wrong with my son's life? If you have the ability, you can have a son. Mrs. Gu has a loud voice and is best at scolding battles in the countryside. Now she scolds Zhang Peipei, which is even more unambiguous. Zhang Peipei's face turned pale when she scolded her. In the past, because she didn't give birth to a son to the Gu family, she couldn't lift her head in the Gu family. Now she's divorced, and they have to poke her back and scold her. Whether you have a son or not depends on the gene. Maybe your son doesn't have that gene. Gu Xiaoyue sneered twice and took Zhang Peipei and He Tsuanfang aside. She didn't intend to entangle them. How the woman's son came is clear to her, but it will take a few years to explode. However, if they mess around, she doesn't mind mixing the water. What do you mean, Gu Xiaoyue, you dead girl, what are you talking about? Gu Xiaoyue turned her head and looked coldly at Gu Daong standing there, watching her mother with her brother and sister. Law stop them from beating and scolding. What do you mean? Ask your son if he has the ability to have a son. I don't know if he can go to the hospital for examination. Now the DNA hospital can still do it. This thing won't lie. In his previous life, Gu Daong's son once fought with someone and lost too much blood. When he wanted blood transfusion, Gu Daong volunteered to give blood transfusion. As a result, the blood type did not match. Once again, he was not his father's son at all. At that time, Gu's family made a lot of trouble, but the woman's family was really rich. In addition to a father who was the director, his brothers were also businessmen. They didn't know how to say it. They just pressed it down, and Gu Daong continued to live with the woman. Gu Xiaoyue didn't know what the situation was, and no one let her know, but she still knew it. Smelly girl, you curse my son for not having a son. I'll kill you, smelly girl. Old lady Gu pulled Gu Xiaoyue to tear her up and specifically greeted her. Naturally, Gu Xiaoyue wouldn't let them hit her. But the two daughters. Law of Gu's family are not vegetarian. They come up and pull Zhang Peipei and fight. Gu Xiaoyue pushes old lady Gu away. Zhang Peipei and He Tsuanfang have been torn by the two daughters. Law of the Gu family. The two sons of the Gu family even beat Zhang Peipei and He Tsuanfang. Gu Xiaoyue was cruel. She picked up a brick and smashed it on the second head of Gu's family. I'll let you hit my mother and I'll kill you. Gu Qiaoyue was cruel, and the Gu family's second head was bleeding, and several people stopped. Gu's third son took the opportunity to rob Gu Qiaoyue's turn. The second daughter.in-law came up and pushed Gu Qiaoyue. You cheap girl dares to beat your second uncle. I won't kill you today. Gu Qiaoyue was pushed and staggered for several steps, seeing that the slap was about to fall on her. But suddenly he was held by a man, looked up and saw a handsome face. Is that you? This man is no one else. He is the man who met him last time. He is a good-looking man in a black Zhongshan suit. At the moment, he held Gu Qiaoyue in one hand and his second daughter.in-law's wrist in the other. Gu's second daughter.in-law wanted to break free, but she found that she couldn't break free. She shouted anxiously. Who are you? Dare to take care of our family. Let me go. The man said coldly, this is the Civil Affairs Bureau, but it's not where you bully people. His voice was very nice, but his tone was a little cold. While talking, he also let go of Gu's second daughter.in-law. Gu Qiaoyue also quickly stood up straight, thank you. He hurried over and pulled Zhang Peipei and He Tsuanfang down behind him. Mom, how are you? Zhang Peipei and He Tsuanfang shook their heads. After looking at it for a long time, Gu Daong came over, pointed to Gu Qiaoyue and frowned. Qiaoyue, who is this man? Gu Qiaoyue turned her eyes and ignored him. Just now, when Gu's family beat them, he stood by and watched. Now he ran out after the fight. Xiao Yu, you are only 17. How can you be confused with men? Gu Daong was distressed and looked very concerned about Gu Qiaoyue. Gu Qiaoyue almost vomited out the overnight meal. It's not your turn to intervene in my business. I'm your father. Gu Daong stressed. Dad. Hee, what were you doing when my mother and I were beaten by your family just now? You just watched. Now you come out to act as a big-tail wolf. I was. What's that? Don't say you didn't see it. Gu Daong, you have a woman's son outside. My mother and I have no problem. There's nothing wrong with a good divorce. Let me see your family wandering in front of me and my mother in the future. You look good. Also, your family had better lighten the cover for me. Don't hang around in front of us. My mother and I are covered. Gu Qiaoyue said, pulled Si Moyan on the side, looked at the Gu family coldly, and said. You can see clearly. This is my brother I just recognized. His family is in Kyoto. The powerful people in the family say it to scare you to death. He can say it. Whoever wants to trouble us in the future, he will kill them. Gu Qiaoyue didn't know the identity of Si Moyan. The reason why she said so was just nonsense and bluff. There are a large number of people in the Gu family. There are only 3 people in her family. Now they annoy the Gu family. They don't want to trouble them when they go back. No matter who this man is, if he Jinchen knows him, he must have a big background. It's also good to scare the Gu family. My surname is Asai. I'm the general manager of Mo's Group. This is my business card. Gu Qiaoyue, who was talking, couldn't say a word because of the voice behind her. She looked back at him. This man. What is he doing? Did he know that he was pretending to be a tiger through him, and he even showed his identity? Did he agree with his own practice? And Mo's Group. Gu Daong came forward suspiciously and looked at the certificate taken out by Si Moyan. At this look, he was stunned, widened his eyes and hurriedly said, Secretary, General Secretary. Mo's Group, it's Mo's Group. What's more, it's the general manager of Mo's Group. Others may not know what the general manager is, but he has worked in the railway for so long. How can he not know? Gu Qiaoyue, the girl, has a relationship with the general manager of Mo's Group. Yes. Si Moyan gave a sound, turned and left. Gu Qiaoyue stared. Si Moyen took a few steps, turned back and said to Gu Qiaoyue, "Don't go yet, wait for someone to kill you." Gu Qiaoyue suddenly reacted. She was so happy that she pulled Zhang Peipei and He Tsuanfang, who were still stunned, and left. When I left, I didn't forget that the fox pretended to be a tiger, hummed to the Gu family and raised my fist. "Look for trouble again, my brother will kill you."